I think can everybody see my screen with my presentation? Just want to make sure I have a lot of screens here. Okay, good. I want to make sure I'm sharing the right screen. All right, so we know that in the work that we do, we start off in orientation talking about the fact that the stigma around mental health and developmental disabilities and poverty, that most of the time those are not true, right? The people we work with are more likely to be victims of violence than to be perpetrators. Now, that being said, we are in situations where there's heightened feelings, there's a sense of emergency because often it is a true crisis. And those situations, because they're emotionally charged, can become dangerous. So we do need to make sure that we're always acting intentionally and being very aware of our situations and knowing when to reach out for help, right? Because I could joke last time I did this training when we were in person, there were whispers that we were going to learn self-defense or that we were all going to be getting up and doing some workout. Guys, we're not going to fight anyone. We're not. That's not what we're here to do. What we're here is to use our words and to talk and connect. And if it goes beyond that, if there's a real threat of violence that you are feeling, that gut feeling of scared, that's when you need to reach out for help to someone like Detective Elts. So just a couple of statistic workers. U.S. health workers have accounted for 2/3 of non-fatal workplace violence. Social workers, the 2000 study said that 14.7% had experienced physical assault. And the rate of assault against mental health workers has been significantly declining. And I think that's because of the approaches that have been coming out through the industry and those person-centered approaches that we use here. So just a few stats to show you why these skills that we're talking about today are so very important. All right, so in the field, you got to think about things. Again, we have to act with intention. The biggest predictor of anything is past history, right? So if someone has a history of violence, if we know that they have a history, that's something that you have to take into consideration. What are their symptoms of mental illness? Have they had negative interactions with either authority or even people just from within our own agency before? Where you can find these? And that's where we can find them in notes. We can find them in psychosocials. We can find them in psyches reports. It's not that you need to read every piece of paper, and certainly humans cannot be defined by a case file, but it's going to give you important information that you need to be aware of when you are out in the field. Just things to keep in mind. Again, we're never shaming or blaming, but really just being prepared so we all can stay safe. So you want to make sure you're always following MHA protocols and policies. We do have a community safety plan that's right on the P drive. When you complete your attestation today, you're going to be able to download that. In case you can't find it on the P drive, it's going to be right there on your attestation. But make sure you're familiar with what MHA's expectations are, because they've been set forth by people who have been there. We've all been there. You want to make sure you think about similar visits you've had in the past. It's easy to get going with your day, right? And you have like 4 or 5 or 6 or 10 visits you need to make today. You got to plan your time all over the county. It's easy to just go in your car, hop in, let's go. But you need to take a moment. In the same way we review our vehicle to make sure that we're putting our mileage in correctly, that we're, getting, everything's functioning correctly. You walk around the outside of the car to make sure that you don't have flat tires. You want to take that same kind of moment and have intention around your visit, right? Just think about it. If you have limited experience, if you are new here, or if you are new to this field, ask questions. Do not be afraid to ask your peers. We are all here to help, whether it's somebody in your department or if it's somebody outside of your department. We are all doing very similar work and are always willing to get into it with you and brainstorm and help you support ideas. So don't be afraid to ask. I often still call Debbie or Angela or Judy or Joan or Jessica and say, listen, this is what I'm going through. I'm feeling reactive or I'm feeling worried. Can you help me talk through this? And people will make the time to do it. And it really makes a difference. Lastly, on this slide, trust your instincts. If it doesn't feel good, if something feels wrong, listen to that voice inside you. Rather to be safe then sorry, right? You trust that voice, you go find help. It doesn't mean you're not going to provide services to that individual. It doesn't mean you're judging them in any way. It means you're looking out for everybody's safety. So trust that little voice. You want to make sure that you're aware of your situation. You want to stay alert. Never want to put yourself in a risky situation. I will say this in almost every training I do, we are not saviors. We are not heroes. We are here to help, but we're a part of a system and we have to follow those protocols. Trust your instincts. And again, if it doesn't feel right, get out of the situation, get some help, talk through it, and then figure out what to do next. Some tips around situational awareness is it's looking and noticing and asking questions, right? So, if there's an escalated situation, what's changed? Distinguish between what you know and what you don't know and what you are presuming is happening, right? You have to identify what is actually happening in front of you and their extent, tempo, or severity. Is someone starting to amp themselves up? I had a situation yesterday. Individual was not dangerous to anyone else, but was experiencing an escalation just inside of themselves. And, that energy is contagious, right? So when we start to notice that tempo go up, we start to notice someone's experiencing, a situation where they're feeling escalated for whatever reason, we need to address that before it gets up here. So notice what's happening, what's changing, what's going on, what do you expect to happen next? And then so what? What's your goal? Right? What do you want to be doing here and what might happen? So just some basic things, because the big things, a lot of what I'm going to talk about is interpersonal, but there's also just some basic work area housekeeping things that, we all need to pay attention to. Keep your your work area organized and secure. So thinking about things, anything we say we cannot bring weapons on the property, no employees or participants, weapons, but you need to be aware of what's on your desk. A 3-hole punch can become a weapon. A letter opener can become a weapon. A pen can become a weapon. So again, just keeping your work area neat and, keeping those things away. Just being aware of what is in your area and what can be used. When entering or exiting the building, look for suspicious activity. If something is happening, say something. One day I came in and there were 3 or 4 of us in the building. There was a man at our current location at Leprechaun. Our camera system is amazing. Man walking around the building. We didn't know him. We all kind of came out, looked at the camera. It was a care coordination client who was just coming here to check out Hudson House, and it was fine, but we asked those questions, right, before going out and figuring out what was happening behind the building. So report suspicious vehicles and people. If you see something, say something, and always be aware of where the exits are, whether you're in a workplace or you're in someone's home. You want to make sure, if possible, if at all possible, that you have a clear access to the exit if you need to get out of that situation. All right, so time for me to stop talking. And I'm gonna have you guys tell me what to do. So we have these scenarios, right? And the situations, it's easy to talk about, a situational awareness or what we should do and give you tips, but the situations we deal with are a little bit more complicated because they involve humans and feelings and interactions. So let's talk about a scenario. I just want you to unmute. You don't have to raise your hand or anything because I can't see all of you right now. Just unmute and tell me your opinion. Fiona, a client, enters the lobby of your office and she's filled with rage immediately. She's in the building already. She's at the front desk, either talking to Sally or Nadia, and she begins yelling and threatening Carl, the receptionist in the office. What should they do? What should that receptionist do in that moment? Don't be afraid.
Well, I think the first thing is to let that individual know that their behavior is not acceptable.
Yeah, absolutely. Just letting them know, reminding them of the rules. Something I've said at Hudson House, because where my office is, I'll say, hey, I'm not sure, like, do you remember those rules, the expectations we went over? Like, we have some stuff, we have some expectations here. It seems like you're outside of that, and I'm gonna need you to de-escalate. What else should you do?
What you had said earlier is, when somebody is at a high level, you don't necessarily want to start engaging them at a high level.
Mhm.
That if you respond with calmness and, say, go into, if you feel like you're going to be safe, go into another area like the conference room, or let me bring you into Steve's office. Let's say if you're here in Middletown, and let's talk about this, just to try to diffuse them.
Yeah.
I think that's also something to consider, because when and my initial thought is, if you say to them, well, this behavior is not allowed, I think that's not necessarily going to diffuse them. Just my 2 cents.
I agree. Casey, I see your hand up. It did pop to the top of my screen. That's cool.
Oh, I was just gonna say maybe like remove Carl from the area, or move the client into a private area, and then maybe talk to them about their feelings specifically as to why they may be feeling that way, and then de-escalate them from there to try and understand where their mindset is at.
Yeah, I think that, so what we found, there's no one right answer, because it's going to depend on who Fiona is and what we know about her, right? Who she reacts to best. See, you always want the person who's going to be able to connect. Hopefully, Carl has some coworkers who've been listening, right? Because we all need to pay attention, not just to what's going on in our worlds, but what's going on in our coworkers' worlds. And if something is loud, not that we need to rush into it, but be present and be available to support. Right? And going in with understanding and empathy, like Debbie said, and Casey said, and Larry said, it is so very important to just really say, hey, it seems like something's going on with you. This isn't who you usually are. Why don't we go talk about it? Oftentimes, especially in the work that we do, the people are escalated because they feel like they are not being heard, right? So we want to make them feel heard, but also keep our space welcoming and safe for our staff and for our program participants. So moving them to an area where we can kind of have some quiet time. Also, sometimes talking to them, not in the louder tone, not trying to compete with that volume, but actually lowering your voice and keeping it very calm can help them to just kind of do that as well. We tend to mimic each other just as humans. That's how our brains work. So, if you model something that's very calm, even if you're feeling it inside, that stress inside, just modeling calm behavior can de-escalate somebody. So safety in public, you do want to go in groups when possible, walk in well-lighted areas, be aware of what's going around with you. Here's one that I need to remind myself all the time: never carry more than what you need to. Because bags and extra things, I will always have my pouches and my bags with me, but those are extra things that can weigh you down or also be available to pull. So keeping it light, traveling light. So always carrying your identification. This is something that we talk about at Hudson House a lot, because there are so many new people. We have a small building with only a couple of offices in here, but we house a lot of the cars down on this end of the county. So we get to meet a lot of people. And a lot of times I'll notice Xavier or Sally saying, someone comes in and says, oh, I need the blue Impreza. And we say, hi, do you work here? Because we, in this world where we're very virtual, we don't always know who all our staff are. So it's important to have that ID on you to let people know that you are working. Don't carry extra money, ID cards. Make sure your work cell phone, if you are out in the field, you must have your work cell phone and it should be charged. Your phones, if you don't keep your phone charged, it's always going to die at the worst time. Believe me, I know that from experience. You want to make sure that phone is fully charged, because that is your connection to help if you're out there. And again, if you're in an uncomfortable situation, get out. Go talk it through with your supervisor. Worst case scenario, you weren't in danger, but you learned something about a situation. You don't ever have to do it in a mean way or a confrontational way, but just get out of the situation and move on. All right, we got another scenario. Juan lives in a rooming house. He needs to meet privately with his care manager. He does not want to meet the care manager's car because he doesn't want to be seen talking with someone unknown or a worker, right? There's a lot of stigma around that. And I have heard, you know, our participants say, I don't want to get in that car because it has a sticker on the back, you know, that says I follow the rules, because that marks it as a worker car, and people have a lot of stigma. So he asked his care manager if he can meet in the only private space that he has in his bedroom. What should the care manager do?
They could possibly ask to meet maybe at another local public area, maybe like a Dunkin' Donuts or something nearby, because the bedroom is not the best option to go to. So maybe, or the Throw Library or somewhere where there's other people around.
Great answer. Great answer. You never want to go into something that's a very intimate space. You know, to asking somebody to go into somebody else's bedroom. I mean, there may be instances where you're visiting somebody in the hospital, so I guess technically you're in somebody's bedroom. But when it can be avoided, being in a private situation like that, that has, you know, those implications of impropriety, avoid it. Go to a public space. You know, you can park your car in the Dunkin' Donuts parking lot and be inside, and no one ever needs to know that you're meeting with that individual. Like Dana said, public libraries are another great place. You know, McDonald's, you know, Starbucks, Barnes and Noble is also super quiet and feels a little therapeutic if you need somewhere. So, you know, finding those spaces that are convenient for the individuals, but also safe for you and give you resources if something does go wrong. So we know a lot of times we're out in the community, right? We're all about community-based care because that's where we meet people where they're at. But we do need to practice extra security when we're out and about in a vehicle or in the community, because we can't control as much as we can in our offices. We have a lot of control when we're here, not allowed in the community. So when you're in your vehicle, you unlock your door, you get in, you lock your doors. It's just safety protocol. That way, nobody can get in, nobody can get out. It has, well, people can get out, obviously you can get out, but you know, it protects you from anybody approaching from outside for any reason. You know, road rage is a real thing. I'm not just talking about participants, but individuals in the community that we may not even be really interacting with. You know, road rage is real, and you just want to protect yourself from any possibility of being in a situation. You want to make sure you park in a well-lighted area. Don't park between two vehicles that are full size, those two full-size vans where nobody can see what's happening with you, blocks the view of everybody. You want to make sure you park out in the open. Might mean you need to walk a little bit further in the Walmart parking lot, but you want to make sure that everything is in view. You want to be aware, again, through this whole presentation, it's all about awareness. Scan the area, take a moment to notice. Look, notice, wonder. Remember where you parked. I know, guys, I'm bad at this. I get really into my work. I take pictures in my phone of where I parked so I can go back and look. Also, you want to be close to the front of the business. Again, when leaving, wherever you are, scan it before you go back out. Take a moment to look, as you're walking towards your vehicle, to notice underneath the vehicle, to notice the back seat. Just take those moments to look and notice for any signs of damage to your vehicle or somebody or something being underneath or inside of it. Have your keys out as you approach, so be ready, right? I love my new vehicle, and I think some of the new MHA vehicles may have this feature as well, the keyless entry, so I am the key if I have it on me. That's ideal, but if you are using the old-fashioned keys or you have to press a button to get it open, make sure you have those open and ready. Again, we always are asked to look and walk around our vehicle, right? That's not just because we think that employees are dinging it or, having fender benders and not reporting. It's because things happen, and also it could be a safety concern. One time, not in an agency vehicle, it was after work hours, my low tire pressure light came on, and I thought, I'm just gonna get to Newburgh. I was in Middletown. I'm just gonna get to Newburgh. There is a gas station right there. I'm gonna be good. My tire blew up on the highway, like full on blew up. So, noticing those things for safety, just for those reasons, that could have been a very bad situation. So, paying attention to all of that. And quickly lock your doors. Don't exit your vehicle for strangers. Have your phone out and ready for use, and pay attention to see if you're being followed. And if you are, call for help. So if you are being followed, you can change the direction, come back to the office. You want to come back to where people know that you're safe, where we have safety protocols in place and can help. You can drive to a busy convenience store, call 911 and ask for help. Again, if you legitimately think this is happening, I don't want to create paranoia, but trust that gut instinct. If you're wrong, you made a mistake. If you're right, you stop something bad from happening. You know, so really take that time, and avoid isolated areas. You know, if you have to go out to the middle of nowhere, don't go out alone. All right, so back to this. Interventions for people under the influence or having an active mental wellness issue, right? Offer assistance, right? We're here to help. So you want to say, what can I do to help? Can you tell me what you need? Don't threaten or challenge. Don't say you need to calm down. You need to do this. You need to do this or that. You need you want to partner with them, right? There's a training that I encourage everyone to take that our family support program shares all the time, and it's called LEAP. It's listen, empathize, acceptance, and partner. Because when someone is in that active state of either using substance or having a mental wellness issue, they can become, you just have to meet them where they are at. Meet any reasonable requests. Pay attention to your body language, okay? So if we were in front of you, you need to seem relaxed. Something that Angela says to me is, I always seem so calm. Guys, I promise I'm not always calm on the inside. I promise I'm not. And there are times but I'm behind closed doors that I'll have my moment. There have been times I've experienced things and I've had to take a moment and just go behind a closed door and cry. But in that moment, you got to have that resting face. You got to seem really confident and super calm. So practice those emotions, because people are going to be able to read you. Even if they're not in a place where they can understand your words, they're reading your body and actions, right? So you want to stay calm. You want to be paying attention and use deliberate movements. When we're scared, our natural response is to cross our arms in front of us or create space, right? We want to make sure that we seem relaxed and not defensive, because if you're being defensive, that may trigger an offensive reaction in the individual. We never want to do that. Now, COVID has made us better at having space between us. You always want to have that 6-foot space if possible, right? First of all, it's great for germs. You know, you're not going to get any germs from about that far away. Second of all, it gives you some time to react. You never want to be real up close to someone's bubble. First of all, if they're having an issue, their bubble's going to get big. So you want to back off and give them that space if possible. Second, it gives you some time to react. And you're going to, again, want to remember where that exit is and how you're getting out of that room. They don't need to know that you were thinking about that, but in your brain while you're listening and figuring out what's going on, asking all these questions, that's something else you also have to pay attention to. If you inadvertently offend them, we know that in our work, we are doing this because we care, right? Our paychecks are not $1 million. Nobody's making 6-7 figures here. We're here because we care. So sometimes we get offended when people say, oh, you said this and that hurt me, because we didn't mean it that way. It doesn't matter. It is not about you. Apologize and make sure you don't do it again. Because whatever happened, whatever intent you had, even if they think you said something that you didn't say in that way, or you said it in a different way and meant it differently, this is not the time to engage in that conversation. Just apologize and be sincere about it. Be sorry that you created whatever that was, even if you didn't intend to. And again, partner with them. I'm so sorry. What can I do to make that up to you? I didn't mean to cause that. You know, I'm here, I'm on your side. Tell me what you need from me. And a lot of times people will. So awareness is the key to assessing risks, right? Be mindful of individuals who seem upset or who have a different behavior, and check in. Check in before the escalation happens if you notice. Some individuals are going to seem withdrawn. Some others may not be able to talk or not stop talking about what has wronged them. These are both signs. Someone who usually talks, who's withdrawn and sullen, or someone who just is repeating over and over and over again. We've all seen it. The same, wrong that they seem to have. It kind of gets stuck on that rumination cycle. An individual who is ready to commit violence in the workplace is also often going to show signs of tension or agitation, might be pacing, cursing, or shouting. But sometimes there's no warning signs, and you just got to be able to roll with it. If you see these warning signs, the best time to stop a crisis is before it starts. But sometimes you're just in it and you got to roll with it. So a lot of times things can trigger this. These feelings don't come out of nowhere. High stress situations can happen. Has there been a death in the family? Has a relationship changed for that individual? Severe weather can trigger things, right? Big deadlines approaching, changes happening for that individual, financial challenges, or dark, isolated locations. During COVID, everyone was feeling triggered, right? Because we were all isolated, and that social connection is so very important. So these are all risk factors to think about, to take into consideration when you're thinking about these situations. When a hostile situation does present itself, that's when it's time for de-escalations. And if you feel threatened, don't hesitate to call for assistance, right? We got to have each other's backs. We got to be there to be ready and partner with each other. You may be in your office working on a report. You hear somebody getting loud, go help your coworker. Not in a way that says, I'm here and I'm a bodyguard. In a way that says, what can I do? Again, always being here and just being relaxed. Hey, I'm here to support you. Okay, another scenario. A client comes for your organization into the office. A few minutes later, the client's partner enters the office, and there's an altercation between the two of them. We know we got participants who are in relationships, right? And now they're having a domestic violence situation in one of our offices. What do we do?
I think similar to greeting the person that was agitated walking into a reception area, we would speak very calmly and work to de-escalate that situation.
Yep. Yep. Anyone else?
I would say
Try to get them separated.
Oh, Nalini, yes, get them separated, right? Because everybody's going through their own thing. They got their own story. It's hard to have two people escalated at the same time. So if possible, separating them, right? I thought I heard someone else chime in there.
I think depending upon the nature of the altercation, doesn't really define what that is. But if they are screaming and yelling versus a physical altercation, I mean, obviously you would respond in kind. But I would agree with Judy, responding calmly, sitting them down. And if it continues, maybe asking for help from a neighboring staff person to assist with the de-escalation, and help as best as you can to diffuse it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I would say too, although we deal with domestic violence, I mean, that's part of our work. A lot of individuals that we have our sexual assault and sexual prevention and advocacy program, right? Did I get that right? It was close. No. All right. Anyway, but we have formerly known as Rape Crisis, that deals with situations like this. But we do have outside partners, right? We're part of Welcome Orange. Of course, in that moment, de-escalating someone, separating them, figuring out what's going on. But once you get them down, not being afraid to reach out. Fearless is the DV agency in the county. reaching out to see if there's anything they can do to support that individual in the long run, like creating a safety plan or therapy or whatever resources they have, you know, beyond ourselves. So very
Allison,
good. Yeah.
Allison, if I was in the office, I do work remotely, but if I was in the office hearing this fracas go on, I would automatically be concerned, if only because so many domestic violent situations go very badly. I definitely would secretly be calling 911 as a
And if-
backup. I
Yeah.
would if I was in the office, I would definitely do that.
You know, if there's any threat of physical violence, you know, always being ready to partner with 911. I personally would recommend calling 311 and telling them that you need some police involvement, because I would want, you know, the mobile mental health team there if at all possible. You know, if we are doing that route, because we know that sometimes police involvement is necessary, but it can also increase the tension of a situation once you add that component, because the individuals do know that in a DV case, someone's going to jail if the police are called. Someone's going, and that can really cause an all or nothing situation, you know? So if at all possible, separating, but again, connecting with law enforcement. If there's a threat of violence, don't hesitate to reach out. But if possible, have that mental health component as well, because we do want to approach it from a trauma-informed position. But you are very right, Linda. That's why I actually use this as an example, because DV situations can be incredibly dangerous. So you need to be even more aware. That's why the first thing you should do is try to separate and create that space. So the goal of de-escalation is to reduce the behavior of agitation so you can talk. Talking is the goal. Connecting is the goal. So sometimes the outcome of a situation can be altered by adjusting our behavior. There have been times when I am so confident going into a situation about how I need to handle it and whether I need to come in strong or soft or how to approach somebody. And I think I'm right because I know that. But I go in and what I'm doing is not working, right? I got to be willing to adjust that behavior, because again, it's not about me, it's about them. And something may have changed for them, and that means I need to adjust. So always paying attention to that emotional intelligence piece of how people are reacting to what you're saying and making changes based on that. Begin diffusing again as soon as you notice a situation. Avoid becoming bureaucratic. You don't want to just go straight to those rules. Address the rules. You can say things. I use Hudson House as an example a lot because we're live and in person here, but I can say things like, it doesn't seem like you're in a good space to be at Hudson House today. Now, what that means is I've noticed you have broken one of the Hudson House rules. But I'm saying that in a way that brings the attention back to that individual and shows concern. Doesn't seem like you're in a good place. What's going on? You want to recognize that each situation is unique. So there is no cookie cutter way to handle these things. You want to be the one driving the interaction, not following the behavior. You do want to be assertive. Assertive, I don't know if is quite the right word, but not aggressive or passive. You want to be confident and calm. So avoid escalation. There are times, man, when you know, you are engaged in de-escalation, and especially if it's someone you've been working with for a long time, they can say something personal to you because you're there and they are just lashing out, and they can hit one of those buttons. And man, it can hurt because it's surprising, right? You got to shake that off and just engage it. Those are the times. Hold it in, compartmentalize just for a minute, right? Focus on the situation. You got to go deal with that later. But in that moment, don't escalate. You know, there are times that you want to react. That's why you have to be so very conscious of what's not only going on externally, but what's going on internally with you. Don't be defensive, even if they're insulting you, and it can get mean, right? Now you have the right to end that conversation. You have the right to disconnect the phone. You have the right to, you know, end the visit, but we do try to want to de-escalate before we do that. We don't want to leave someone in crisis in the community, but you do not have to stand there and be a punching bag. What you can't do is fight back, right? You can say, listen, I don't react well in situations where I'm being yelled at, and I'm not hearing what I can help you with right now. So when you give me, you know, why don't we schedule a visit for another time and we can talk about this then. And in the meantime, get your thoughts together, something like that. You know, there's no, again, cookie cutter way to deal with it. Try not to ask accusatory or confusing questions. Ideally, you don't want to add to that agitation, right? Because anxiety comes out as anger a lot. So you want to be clear, concise. You don't want to be asking a ton of questions. You want to be there to listen. Avoid high-risk behavior like getting close in someone's space. It can be tempting, if you know someone, to come in to say, listen, I'm here to take care of you. You're putting yourself in a risky situation if someone's escalated. So remember to keep that space between you. Okay, John is a program participant. He's buzzed into the building by the receptionist, Carlita, who he knows well. While he's signing into program, Carlita notices he's carrying a large knife. No, he's not threatening or anything. She just notices it in his back pocket or cargo pants hanging there. He has it there on his belt. What should she do?
Well, the first thing would be to keep him in the front. Don't let him go, you know, where everybody else is, and then just call somebody to come and maybe like speak to him in the front, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. So you don't want to be alone, right? Because there's a weapon involved. He's not threatening it. So you don't want to come in and escalate the situation. Guys, we work with people who are experiencing homelessness or who do not live in situations where they feel a sense of safety. There are some real practical reasons someone can be carrying a weapon, right? But they can't have it in program and they can't have it during a visit. And so we need to keep ourselves safe. So, you know, making sure there's two people there and just asking them, hey, you know, this has quite literally happened at Hudson House, not recently, at our old location. Someone had a hatchet and it was around safety. But we did have to say, hey, listen, I noticed that you have that on your belt. Unfortunately, you know, we can't have that in program. I'm sure you can understand why. Is there anywhere that you can keep that that's safe while you're here with us? So not, again, assuming they're going to commit violence, because a lot of people we work with are used to people assuming the worst of them, right? So you don't want to go in and trigger. But just, again, bringing it back to, these are just our rules for my safety, for your safety. Let's figure out a way that we can put this away. Now, if you are out and you notice a weapon in an apartment or in a community setting, remove yourself from the setting. Okay, this situation, someone coming in with a weapon, we can address that. If you are in a home and you notice a weapon, something that's clearly, obviously anything can be used as weapons, but if you notice a large knife, something that's clearly a weapon, get out of that situation and go talk to your supervisor about it and create a plan. You don't want to address it while you're out there by yourself. So when you're in these situations, you have to be doing lots and lots of thinking, right? And it's hard because it's high stress. You'll be thinking a lot, look calm, interact, say the right things. So here's a couple of things you can remember. It's ladder. Look at the person. Don't look away. Looking away seems dishonest. It seems nervous. It seems like you have anxiety. It can indicate anger. It can indicate lying. You want to look at that person. You want to ask questions calmly, right? What's going on? How can I help you? Can you tell me what you're experiencing right now? And when they go to talk, it might be repetitive, it might be long, but especially we're in that top place, let them go. Unless they're escalating themselves, you can go back to asking the questions, but sometimes they just need to get it out, whatever it is. Let them have that moment of, you know, verbal diarrhea, get it all out. Let me hear it, be messy, it's okay. Tell them you'll sit in the suck with them. You know, I'm here to be with you. I can't always help, but I can listen and we can talk about it. Don't change the subject. You're not going to distract them out of this. They are not a toddler having a temper tantrum. They're an adult human experiencing a crisis. So don't change the subject, engage with them and try to help. Be aware of your own emotions. I have to fix my face all the time because looking surprised, looking agitated, looking irritated by something that has sparked something within you can impact that situation. And again, it's not about you. So you got to be aware of what's going on inside of you as well. And respond with verbal and nonverbal cues. So again, making sure your body is very open. You create that 6-foot space between you, which gives you time to react. And you're also indicating that you are feeling very open and comfortable and confident with this person. You never want to appear afraid or angry. You want to look for verbal and nonverbal warning signs again, and think about how you will respond. It's okay to take a second. Just because things are moving fast doesn't mean that you don't have a minute to think about what you're going to say next. You can say, wow, that's a lot of information you've just given me. Let me take a second to process it. Oh, wow, I just learned a lot of new things. I want to make sure that how I respond to you is in a way that I articulate correctly. Give me a minute, It's okay to say that. You don't want to overreact. Adding emotions to the situation, adding air to the situation is going to give it space to escalate. So you want to, again, calm tone, don't intimidate. We are not fighting anyone. We are not doing self-defense. We are not here engaging in combat. What we're here to do is to de-escalate. So we don't add to situations, we take the anxiety out of them. And you talk about how you feel. Yesterday, I had somebody in program, again, not outwardly experiencing anything, not toward anyone, but was kind of just going through something internally, just getting a little loud, using a couple inappropriate words during his rumination. And I said, hey, I noticed that, I heard you say the F word a few times. What's going on? He shared with me and he said, oh yeah, I can't talk like this here because everybody's fragile. And my response to that was, listen, I am telling you I'm fragile. I'm telling you I'm having a reaction to this. Name one person that you know that doesn't have trauma related to loud voices. And that clicked for him. I wasn't judging him. I wasn't saying anything about him as an individual or him as a person. I was saying, think about the others in your space and how you're interacting with them. For him, that clicked. But again, I was talking about how I felt. I wasn't talking about how other people felt or how the group felt. It's me, because it's harder to get mad at a person who's looking at you and trying to help, right? All right. You got to know what triggers you. Person's yelling, speak softly and slowly. Don't argue or try to convince, give choices, right? Limited choices. When you're in a space where you're escalating and thinking really quickly, things sometimes are going really fast for you inside your head. So give some choices of alternatives. Saying things like, hey, do you want to go for a walk? Or you want to go and talk in my office for a little bit? Or maybe, do you need a ride home from program? It doesn't seem like you're in a good space. Do you need to call your therapist? Things like that. Giving choices and being aware. Never turn your back for any reason. Don't turn your back. Stay at eye level. So if they're sitting, sit. They're standing, stand. You never want to create a power dynamic. There's lots and lots of things that we do as humans that create power and levels. We don't want to do any of them. Stand at an angle so you can always sidestep if needed. And sometimes even friendly things. I try to just do the blank face, very relaxed, because smiling can be interpreted as not being friendly, but mocking somebody or laughing at their situation. I've noticed that a lot of individuals that I've worked with lately really are feeling that. They often are imagining that if someone's smiling, that it's laughing at them, not trying to engage with them as individuals. All right, so we have another scenario. Jose is a care manager. He is scheduled to visit with Joan, his participant at Hudson House. When Joan arrives, she's quiet and withdrawn. Jose notices she's slurring her words and asks if there's been any medication changes or if she's been using substances. She becomes angry and throws her purse at Jose. What should she do next?
Maybe give the client space to calm down.
Giving them space to calm down. Now, if you look at our safety policy, community safety plan, if you know that someone's using substances, you do need to terminate the visit. So at this point, where the question was asked, you want to get out of that situation as quickly as possible. Right now, again, you want to de-escalate, so get a partner. You don't want to be alone. If you're meeting in the conference room at Hudson House, it's pretty easy because we're nice and big and open here. If you're in the, say, interview room in Middletown, just opening that door, and maybe going over to Steve or whoever's in the conference room and saying, come on over here, I need you, is going to help you, because when people are actively using, they may not be participating in the same reality that you are, right? You can't tell how an individual is going to react, and it can affect every part of that person. So you want to make sure that you're keeping yourself safe. At that point, if she's able to be de-escalated, I've had someone throw a change purse at me, and then that was it. That was their release, and there was no real harm done. We talked about how that was inappropriate, and went back to our meeting. But if she continues to be escalated, you do want to work to get them out of the building and connect her with somebody who's able to help. So reaching out to a substance use agency, even though we know that many of the people that we work with have substance use challenges, that's not our specialty, just like DV is not our specialty. So reach out, connect them with a peer through Catholic Charities or through ADAC, and get them the help they need in order to be able to address their situations. You cannot address mental health issues while there's a substance involved, because it's almost impossible to tell which is which, because they interact so much. So it really is important to connect somebody with the right help for that person. Ask questions. Don't make assumptions. Active listening is an important skill. You cannot space out between words, and it's easy to, man, especially if you're stressed out. So ask questions and listen to the answers, and answer all questions they have seriously. And if there's something you can't answer, just say, listen, I can't answer that. That's not information I can give you. But again, answer the question, don't avoid it. You want to discuss all the alternatives. You want to get input from this person. You want to know how they think they can solve the problem. What's going on? How could this work better for you? I know you're feeling challenged by this particular situation. What do you think we can do? What supports do you think you might need? And start a conversation that way, because you want to start working toward agreement. Listen, empathize, acceptance, and partner, right? And if you need help, ask your supervisor, ask a coworker. We have all been there and are willing to talk through it with you. Know office procedures, such as who can you call for assistance? You want to be thinking about this in every situation. You never want to threaten in return. Never want to threaten, saying something like, you're not going to be able to return to program. How you feel when somebody says that to you is going to escalate, right? So you don't want to threaten in return, even if those threats are valid. That's something consequences are something for another discussion. That's not what we're addressing in that moment. And every response should be immediate and fair and without anger. And that means we need to spend a lot of time before really thinking about it. I pulled this straight from our community safety policy and procedure. So I'm not going to go through all of these, but it basically just reiterates the things that we already talked about. So knowing the layout of the home, knowing if there's a history of violence, knowing if there's drug or usage, understanding what the diagnosis is for that particular individual. And back to Steve's point, attire and footwear can have an impact on your safety. If you are doing a community visit, 3-inch heels, even though those look very professional, are not appropriate because you will not be able to run. You will not be able to get out quickly. It can cause you to trip. Also, conversely, flip-flops, not great for running. I've heard people say, well, I'm just going to take them off and go. If you're doing that in the city of Newburgh, you may step on broken glass, a needle, anything on the ground. Again, not safe. So really thinking about footwear in terms of safety. Same thing with your body, right? I have this on right now, this big flowy thing. But underneath I just have my MHA t-shirt and a pair of black pants. Those are tight, but not too tight. But they don't have a lot of flowy things. These flowy things are easy to grab, easy to get caught on things. You don't want to have that. You want to keep it, I know a lot of you wear your MHA t-shirt and a pair of jeans and a sneakers. That's a very appropriate outfit to go into the community. Also necklaces, knowing that, if you have a necklace on, that can be used as a weapon. It's a real easy weapon to pull and choke. So it's something to consider if you're going into homes. I encourage you to really consider what jewelry you're wearing. Our MHA lanyards are breakaway for a reason, right? Because we always want to be thinking about safety. Your hair, making sure that it's pulled back and nice and tight and not able to be pulled. Buns are great, braids are great. Those protective hairstyles that don't allow for people to grab and pull. When you are concerned, ask for a partner to come out with you. We are all busy. We all have big caseloads. We all have a lot of people with a lot of needs, but we will take the time. If you are having a gut feeling that you need some support, talk to your supervisor, talk it out. And under certain circumstances, it may be for some individuals that are always going to have two people there. And that just may be something that you work out with your supervisor. Again, you want to make sure if you have to leave a situation, say you do notice a weapon in a home and you need to leave, you absolutely need to call your supervisor right away. And your supervisor, likely your director, are going to talk about what to do next, because we need to make sure that you're safe. No type of any weapons are permitted on the premises of MHA's programs. That includes housing programs. You do need to make sure. I have heard of sometimes, not necessarily staff in our agency, but just people in general in our industry talking about carrying mace or tasers or things like that. First of all, remember the rule. We want to stay 6 feet apart. You're not macing anybody from 6 feet apart. You're not tasing anybody from 6 feet apart. The products that are available to consumers and at the rate at which we use them, we don't have a lot of practice, guys. Again, we're not out there fighting. You are more likely just to tick somebody off and put yourself in a really dangerous situation. So you don't want to engage. You don't need a weapon. What you need to do is make sure that you always have an exit from the situation. Now, I'm not telling you not to fight if something really ends up happening, of course, but you want to create a situation where that's not happening. You're never getting close to the individual. If alcohol or drugs are being used on the premises or the individuals appear to be under the influence, the employee, consultant, volunteer must terminate the visit in a non-confrontational manner. That's straight from our policy. So, again, non-confrontation, but we do, if drugs are found or brought to program, we do need to contact local police. We don't want to be throwing those in the garbage. Thank God, knock on, I guess, from Micah, we, at this particular location, have not had any drugs, but at our Broadway location, I did have what I believe was fentanyl brought into me in a little baggie, spice, other non-identified substances. And what I did is had to call the Newburgh police, and they said, drive it to us. And I said, no, sir, I will not be driving that to us. You can come here when you're ready to pick it up. And he eventually did. He did come over and pick it up. But do not transport drugs in your vehicle. Do not move them. Do not touch them. Put them in a safe location. So again, work with your manager or supervisor and contact the proper authorities, because we never want to be throwing it at our dumpster and someone sees that, goes in after it and ODs because we didn't keep that safe. So you always want to reach out to the proper authorities. When you're transporting, you want to follow all driving laws. You want to make sure you're paying attention in the vehicle. You want to be vigilant. If you feel unsafe when you are transporting someone, if someone is escalating while you are driving, pull over the vehicle. Pull over the vehicle as soon as you can and call for help, because that can be a very dangerous situation. Again, non-confrontational. We're not mad. We're just dealing with safety here. So pulling over that vehicle, because you know how dangerous it can be to drive in a high emotional situation where there's things going on in the car, and give that person time to calm down. Give them the time and space. Say, listen, I can't drive while this is going on, but we're pulled over now. Tell me what's going on with you. It seems like you're up here. What's going on? And talk about it. Now, you want to make sure you have all these things in here, the mini first aid kit, spare tire, vehicle emergency and assistance information, a snow brusher, ice scraper, because again, safety is also about just being prepared for those environmental factors. And this, I'm not going to work through it, but I talked a lot about how we think about emergency situations and how we react. And this requires a lot of planning, right? You got to program your brain to think in a particular way to be ready for these situations. And this is a personal safety template that can help you think through that. So it goes through all the things that are going on with you, your environment, the client, and then also what are the laws, what are the policies, what are the rules in whatever place you're in. So when you go to sign your attestation today, this presentation is going to be available to you. So you can, if you want to, use this template, have it on you when you go out in the field and use it to help you think through situations before you engage in them. Oh, that's the end of it. All right. So we got to the end. Oh my gosh, right on time too. It's 11 o'clock. That's great. So at this time, I know we went through a lot of information. So anybody have any questions, or does anybody, I am not the end all and be all expert in this area. Lots of you have experience. So, does anybody have any knowledge, wisdom, advice that they would like to share at this time? Any questions that they want to ask the group? Because again, we are all in this together. So I just want to give you a moment.
I think going back to the last, what was it, example that you used as far as like the slurring the words and the substance abuse, it is important to know who the client is and their medical barriers, because slurring of words can be a lot of different things. They could be going into diabetic shock. They could be having a stroke. It is really important to understand that jumping to the fact that it might be substances is not always a good thing to do, because that is triggering, especially to someone who is going through a health crisis, not a substance crisis.
Excellent point, Elizabeth. I was just going to make the same point. Diabetes also can present as being like really nasty and agitated. Like, before you go into a diabetic crisis, it can have a huge impact on your personality and mood. So it's great. That's a wonderful point to not jump into conclusions about going. And that's why it's important to know medical history.
Allison, I think you did such an excellent job, and the statements that you made are it's just being very practical and keeping these these concepts at the forefront just of our day-to-day business of doing this work wherever we are, be it in the community or attending a meeting or going to an individual's home. I think what happens, and I'm guilty of this, I think you get so wrapped up in trying to keep your appointment, do all your documentation, complete all of the components of your work that you need to, and sometimes you might not be as vigilant as you need to be in terms of being aware of your surroundings and, being able to just apply the staying alert and trusting your inner voice and staying calm I mean, these are just all really important practical strategies we can all use. So I thank you, because this is all really good information for everybody, no matter what kind of work that we did.
Absolutely. Larry had a good point in the chat. He says it may be appropriate to ask the client if they're carrying weapons, guns, or knives, especially if they're carrying a backpack prior to getting in your vehicle. You know, it's fine, especially if you have a relationship with those individuals. Ask questions. It's okay to ask those questions. You just need to practice asking them in a way that's not confrontational, right? Just practical. This is something I ask everybody. I'm sorry I have to do it to you, but you know, what do you got in your backpack? Any substances or weapons? I'm just not allowed to have them on me.
I wanted to add something that's information. I had watched a show on Discover about the brain and the sensation of your gut feeling, call it our gut feeling, is actually your subconscious. And your subconscious is a compilation of everything that we have learned in our whole lives. But for some reason, it does not communicate directly with the rest of our brain. That's why we don't know for certain. We just say it's a gut feeling. But that's why everybody tells you to go with your gut feeling, because it is everything you've ever learned in your life talking to you.
It's saying something is wrong with this picture before you can quite figure out what it is, right?
Yes.
I like that, Linda. Yep, listening to your inner voice. It's there for a reason. Great. Anybody have anything else? Well, Allison, that was excellent. Thank you so very much again. And we really good information. Just a reminder too to the supervisors to ensure that for those staff that did not have the opportunity to participate today, to make sure that they get this information. MHA does have a community safety policy, so going over that policy with that staff is going to be very, very important. This is a required training for all staff annually, and we just want to make sure everybody gets this information.